Hello and welcome back to another podcast episode of The Little Filly Who Couldn't Be Broken. So today's topic, what I'm going to talk about today, is ancestral healing. So recently I have been doing a lot of ancestral healing on my side and both my mother and my father's side, but also and I've had this conversation with more than one person, so I think the universe is trying to give me a hint or a clue here, trying to send me a message, is that the relationship that you're in also has an impact. Their ancestral karma, their ancestral wounding and patterning has an effect on you as well. So when I took my Akashic records, they spoke about this and that we marry into those ancestral patterns. And so they'll have an effect on us, right? They will become part of our energy. They'll become part of our algorithm for energy, right? Like they become part of our experience. So also taking that into consideration and into account. And so I've done a lot of ancestral research. And, I'm still digging into, but as I go through the ancestral research, I'm guided down the paths that have healing for me. I'm guided down the paths that I resonate with. I'm guided down or over to the stories that have some kind of impact on the life I'm living now, right? Like how my life is going now, other than the ones that didn't have a huge impact on me, right? So I'm not being led to, although like I do read like some of the other stories that come up in my research, in my history, they're there, but they're not having that impact and they're not having that resonant tone with me, right? Like it's like, oh, this person got abused. Oh, this person had anxiety. Oh, this person was sick in this way. This person went through a very traumatic thing. This person was very successful. This person had super awesome, amazing gifts and helped the world. You know what I mean? So each of the stories that had an impact on me, that resonate with me, those are the ones that I'm looking at. Those are the ones that I'm working with to either believe in my success or step into my gifts that have been handed down and my talents and know my worthiness, and understand, I guess, step into my worthiness, and or move through the wounds, right? Move through the pains, move through the traumas that have been passed down and have been, kind of like in generation after generation and passed down, right? So being in the ancestral karma. So yeah, I've been doing a lot of that work and it's super easy to do. All of the other podcasts, all the other episodes, all the other teachings that I have, the work is the same. It's just that you go into the ancestral, you'll go into someone else's past, you'll go into someone else's pain points, and you'll move through the forgiveness, you'll move through the acceptance that it happened to them, and you'll move through the healing that would be theirs, that is theirs, and that now in your lifetime resonates with you. And that's how we change ancestral patterning, is we go back into our ancestors and we change and heal what happened to them so we can change and heal what happened and what is happening for us right now. So, what else can I tell you about that? I've been doing a lot of this. So the first thing, not that this is a teaching podcast, but the first thing that you want to do is start to figure out, who are those ancestors? Where did I come from? What is my genetics? Mother's line, father's line, grandmother, grandfather, both sides, and continue to build it out. And I actually read something the other day. I think it was a school, it was a classroom program that, like that they teach people to build their ancestral charts, right? Their um, charts. And this teacher was adamant that we stop doing that because people didn't know, necessarily both sides of the family. They didn't necessarily, because so many split families these days, and, adoptions and foster homes and all of the other unconventional, I guess, situations out there. And it's fine. And that's fine if you don't know. Because you can ask spirit, you can ask God, you can ask the universe, you can ask the energy, what were they like? All you have to, it's kind of like even just go into like yes or no. Was this my grandmother's patterning? No. Okay, it was my grandfather's. Okay. And just ask the universe, okay, my grandfather, did something traumatic happen to him? Did something great happen to him? And you kind of start to get the messages, you start to get the downloads, and then you just move through the intuitive situations that are coming up. And I'll bet you it still makes you feel better. It still moves through the healing process, and it still has a huge impact on you. Just doing it the intuitive way versus doing it the research way. But if you have the chance, grab a book, grab a chart, generational chart, ancestral chart, and start jotting them in. Figure out, kind of like where they came from, what they went through, what their culture was, what their religion was, what their job or work situation was like, right? Like, were they out on a farm, kind of in an agriculture setting? Were they in an urban setting? Were they a business person or a nanny, or you know what I mean, like a secretary for someone? Were they the local country school teacher? Were they, just not just a housewife, but was that their primary thing, was to stay home with the kids and take care of the homestead, whether it be mother or father, and you start to see some of those general consistencies. If you can find stories, like just names, dates, locations, and then if you can find stories, that's all or pictures, that's all the more helpful. And get to know these people, even if you only get to know them in your heart, even if you even get to know them by energy, even if you just take a 5 generational chart and print one off. I've printed numerous ones off, and start writing in any name you know, but even just like set the intention, even if your chart is blank beyond your name, set the intention to get to know the energy of your mother, get to know the energy of your father, get to know the energy of your grandmother, grandfather, both sides, great grandmother, great grandfathers, all 4 sides, and continue on. I would probably start with a 5 generational, but we hold on to generation trauma, energy, experiences 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. And I'm sure, kind of like we could go and we could dig further back into that, not just research dig, but energetically dig further back into that. Absolutely we could. But I feel like it kind of started to fade after that. Like after about 5 generations, let's say 150 years, a couple hundred years, 5 to 7 generations, it starts to fade because the newer generations are starting to have, maybe it's just my time frame too, but I was going to say the newer generations are starting to have different experiences than those older generations had, right? Not that the older generations aren't still impactful to us to this day. They definitely are. But maybe it's just like this day and age, because honestly, if you look at the last 150 years, the last 200 years, even the last 250 years, we have gone through a lot of change. But maybe it's also different in like the location you're in, because if you're like Canada is only 150 years old, but it was about the last 300, 1600, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 2000s, about 500 years, um, that like the Europeans started to come over, and others started to come over and started to interact with and then start to inhabit um, North America. And so the country that I'm in and the even the continent that I'm on has a really young not generation, history, I guess. There is history before that, and definitely like the history goes on before that. But if you're in maybe like an area of the world where the history is a little bit more impactful for more generations back beyond that, no, the universe is still telling me they're just like 7 generations. That seems to be the number. And I think things just kind of get worked out over time. You know what I mean? Like that they don't necessarily heal themselves, but enough people implemented. This is where I was going with it. Enough people implemented enough change that those patterns don't necessarily maybe. Although we still do. That being said, we still do. We are still feeling the effects of many, many things that have happened a long, long time ago, beyond 7 generations. So just take a look inside and out of your ancestral heritage, the location you're in. And so even if I was like, because I feel like I'm doing this research, I'm doing this healing here in Saskatchewan, Canada. But even like this is where my people ended up settled and I was born, right? But my people came from other places, right? They came from actually even the Quebec area. They were down in the States, some of them at some point in time, right? A lot of them came from over in Europe, or if not, the indigenous here that were already settled here too. So my people were here. But they were spread out, and then they kind of came together here to meet up here to create me. But if I was over in Quebec doing this same like ancestry research, the same healing and everything, I feel like I would be on a different path and be digging down different lanes, if you will, because I would be impacted by the location in which I resided. So I'm going down the track, and I resonate with the history, not that's just local history, but the history that got us here, right? So if I was over in Quebec, where a lot of them came through that area, I think 4 out of my 8 great grandparents. Anyways, however many came from the Quebec area. If I was over there, I would be healing different. I'd probably be healing more of like the French culture, and still probably the Canadian culture, probably the French-English conflicts, and then maybe I would dive into as well the Indigenous as well, because it's part of Canada, it's part of like the fur trade and everything that happened in Canada. So I'm starting off with the research that's impacted me locally, okay? And then I kind of broadened, and I'm stepping into. So if you put my pin, like a pin in the map or on a Canadian map, and where I am, my research started. Give a circle around that in the local area, and I don't just mean my community. I mean like the size of my province, right? Like I really looked at what happened here, not just Canada, or sorry, not just Saskatchewan, but like Alberta and everywhere. And then I broadened it out down to like Manitoba, Winnipeg, the prairies, I even went down to the States. Like I said, there were some in South Dakota, North Dakota, Montana, you know, down there, and I broadened it out there. And now I'm reaching out a little bit beyond that, reaching out to the Quebec and anywhere else that they lived beyond that, where my ancestors came from and what history happened there. Um, and then once I'm done my kind of like Canadian and then North American research, but also healing. This absolutely the reason I'm talking about this right now is because as I do this research, as I dig into these stories, as I find more pictures, as I add more people to my chart, mostly those people like, I was gonna say related to me, but they're all related to me, but like the grandparents, right? But even hearing the stories about, you know, aunts, uncles, cousins, and whatnot, like it's all impactful. It's all impactful. And then so once I go beyond my Canadian and North American, I'm going to be stretching out a little bit farther into the European realm. And there I had from like 4 or 5 different countries over in Europe. And but if I was living over there, like even if I was born here in Canada and was living over there, I feel like I would be like I was drawn there for a reason. So wherever you are located, I think the point I'm trying to make is it plays a big impact on how you progress with this, right? Let's say if one of my sisters, which they didn't, but if they would have, you know, moved away, one moved to Europe and whatnot, they would probably have a completely different perspective, completely different patterning, completely different um, resonation, like, and they resonate with different ancestral patterning. They resonate with different stories. They resonate with different parts of and different grandparents. I found it really interesting that each of my sisters, I mean, as we kind of all know, like if you do your ancestry research and have done the DNA, then if all siblings do their DNA, no one sibling is going, like, they're not going to be identical because they grab different DNA from their parents, even though it's 50-50 from mother, father. It's a different handful. It's a different amount of each. They just become and show up as different people, right? They are unique in themselves. And so I found it really interesting that the grandparents that we most resonate with, we got our grandparents, the 3 grandparents that are still living, our parents, all of my siblings, my parents, and all 3 of my grandparents have done the DNA. And each sibling, and whichever grandparent that they resonated the most, that's the one that they had the most DNA in common with. And I'm like, I don't really think that that is a coincidence, but I also found that very interesting. Now, you can go ahead with all of that or not. Just grab a chart, start creating your chart, writing in what you know. If you don't know it, dig into it energetically. Ask the divine, ask the universe, ask creator, you know, who were these people? What did they go through? You know, how did they show up? How did they feel? You know, were they really like worn down by life? Were they an anxious person? Were they an outgoing person? Were they, you know, all of the things, right? Because I mean, I could sit here and list personalities for forever, right? But so what personality were they like? What were they like? And so you can do it either way. It works all the ways. And then once you get to knowing those ancestors, knowing those stories, how does it resonate with you? How do those stories resonate with you? What do you need to heal within yourself? Because again, it's the same thing. I sit my 3 sisters down, the 4 of us down, and each of us tells a different story. Each of us resonates with a different piece of the patterning, different piece of life, a different area of the past or whatever. So what's coming up for you? That's what you need to heal, because it's coming up for you now in your DNA, in your ancestral patterning, in your experiences in your life, that's what you need to heal. What do you resonate with? And sit down, grab your journal, and write out what stories were impactful for you, what you resonate with, the feelings, the emotions that come up, which grandparents or grandparents or great grandparents or whatnot, like, where are you going from here? So I find this completely so interesting. I created a whole course about it. And I love it. I love it. And this is what I do for myself. And this is what I've started to do. Um, like I said, what you marry into also has an impact on you. And then, obviously, as well, the other parent also has an impact on the kids, right? So if you're going down that, because what we heal in us, what we heal in our generational trauma from like past generations, we also heal in our kids. So we can't forget about the generational healing that we will be giving or getting or creating, the transformation we'll be creating for our children as well. We'll be showing up differently for them. The patternings will be different for them. We can heal the patternings in them. We just have to ask their higher self. We just have to ask them if they are of understanding age. My kids are still pretty little, but my oldest is 3.5, and he already says, "Mom, can you clear away the ghosts?" And he knows. So he absolutely is open to that and allows that. So just get permission from their higher self, get permission from their soul at a soul level, and clear as much, because they are also here to have an experience. So we ourselves and our kids and our parents, and this takes away what do I want to say? Anyways, I'll finish this thought, is that we were born into the perfect time, the perfect place, the perfect location, the perfect parents. We chose them, okay? We chose our parents. We chose the situation, and we even chose, speaking of my sisters that had all different patterning and experiences and all of that stuff, each and every one of my siblings chose to come into the world at that specific time, that specific body, that specific experience, and have that specific patterning. You already chose that as a soul, that's the experiences that you are going to go through. So I was going to say, I don't feel sorry for them. I trust the universe. I trust that those experiences are there for them to have, there for them to heal, there for them to grow, there for them to flourish, there for them to show up the best way that they know how. So their traumas or their pain points are theirs for them to have. So number one, just don't take that away from them. But where I was going with this is our kids choose the same thing. Our kids choose us as parents for that exact reason. They chose us. They chose this experience. They chose to come into that world, whatever chaos or whatever craziness or whatever thought patternings, because I had a bazillion thought patternings when I was pregnant or as I'm going through parenthood, but my kids don't pick up on every single one. They only pick up on the ones that they resonate with. And so they're here to have those experiences. But as I said, as I'm raising these two little kids and doing this ancestral healing on myself, I'm also here to change me, to change them in the way of changing the world for them. But they also know I rectified not just putting them through hell, because they also chose me as a parent, knowing the skills I had, knowing the talents I had, knowing the awareness I had, knowing that I could help them if and when they needed help in the times when we were struggling. They were struggling as a person, we were struggling as a family, or, there was conflict somewhere, right, in their lives. So that's the experience that they chose to have. they may have come in with one, you know, like patterning, and it may get cleared out at 3. It may get cleared out at 16. It may get cleared out at 7. It may get cleared out when they're 35. But they chose me as a parent and their father as a parent, knowing that that was perfect for them. Okay? So wherever you are in life, however old your kids are, however, like wherever you are, it's always the right time and it's always perfect. And we can always bring this forward, healing our parents, healing ourselves, healing our grandparents, healing those who have passed on, and moving forward, healing our kids. And if you're older than that, healing your grandkids. And if you're older than that, still looking at and helping to heal your great grandkids. All makes sense? Okay. I feel like you guys have some questions. We're going to try and intuit some questions because this is just a podcast. But if you have questions, I do believe, you know what, you can reach out on social media, you can email me, you can find me. Definitely. If you have those burning questions, you can find me. I don't think you can leave comments on podcasts, but I believe on YouTube you can leave comments underneath. So I will have to try to go check those because I don't have any YouTube notifications set for to come through for me. So, I would try like emailing or something if it's a really burning deep question. But will try to look at the comments. So if you're patient, you can leave a comment there as well. This is a really big thing. It's a really impactful thing to do this work. It's really impactful to do the ancestral healing for those generations above you and healing those generations below by starting with yourself. I'm just trying to think about the questions or intuit the questions. I feel like the biggest question that people are asking is, what if you don't know? And I've kind of gone over that, but I can go over it yet again and I can dig deeper into it. Because if you do know, if you dig into the research, and there's a lot of, like, let me tell you, even if you don't know, and there are instances where we just don't know, there's no record trail. Like, they're burned, people lied, it's not correct, it's just done. But sometimes people just get stuck in their research, right? But there's a lot of avenues to follow. There's a lot of avenues that you can follow out there. So if you're stuck, keep trying, keep asking. There's a lot of records that are out there. There's all kinds of records beyond just like birth records, death records, marriage certificates. There's the censuses, as you know. There are church records. There are school records. There are health records, but I'm not sure if you can tap into those. There's newspaper articles. Sometimes, even just a newspaper article with someone's name in it, celebrating something. Someone turned 40. That it at least gives you a starting place, right? Yeah. Just keep looking, keep going, keep asking questions. Ask questions to the people you do know. Okay? Ask your parents if you know them. Ask siblings if you know them. Ask grandparents if you know them. Ask aunties and uncles if you know them. Ask community members who have any relation or relevance or knowledge of your personal situation. And just be honest with them. And for the most part, they'll be honest back. Okay? So that's the research part. But if you really just don't know, that's your journey too. That's what you chose. That's what you chose. So number one, know that that's what you chose in this life, is to not know whatever it be, your parents or one of your parents or your grandparents or the truth about your situation. Okay, that's what you chose. So just be okay with that. But also, like I said, energetically ask the universe. If you go into, I think what I would say is, if you can find someone who works with the Akashic Records, that would be a place to start. Grab a book on the Akashic Records, specifically typing in Ancestral Healing, um, and that will help you do some meditations and get to meet your family members energetically. Um, and it's something you're going to have to do if you are so called to do it. It's something you're going to have to do energetically. And I know 100% it can be just as impactful. I know it can be just as impactful because I've also been there too. I've had, and it's actually kind of funny. So I've had situations where I haven't known, and then as I get curious about it, as I energetically tap into them, and I mean, I have a lot of research. I have a lot of people, family genealogists, or just records that are out there for most of my families. So I'm not really stuck in that way. But if I get stuck, if I just get curious on who they are, like, oh, what would they have been like? Where would they have lived? And just get curious on, even just energetically going into, and the universe will tell you, they were short and stout, they were tall and lanky, they were very lovable and they hugged everyone, or they were very standoffish and very quiet and introverted. And they'll kind of paint you a picture. But the more I get curious, the more breakthroughs I had, the more it would lead me, the more I connected with them spiritually. It's almost like the past loved ones, the ghosts, the remnants of their spirit. The spirits led me there. They helped me out. That curiosity, that openness, that healing. If I got curious about who they were, what they went through, and I walked through the healing process, that healing was enough. That healing was enough to open doors so I could find out more truths or just stumble on more information to continue my search down the line. So no promises, but you might be pleasantly surprised, I suppose, if you do this work and you energetically jump into it, that doors might start opening for you. So I feel like that's the answer to the burning questions out there. Okay? Oh, God, I love this so much. This is what God put me on this earth to do. This is healing ancestral karma. Okay, that'll be it for today's podcast. Again, you can always reach out. You can always check out my website. You can always check out my social media. Always check out my YouTube. But like I said, my YouTube and my podcast are, it's the same audio, same video. So, same subject matter. But you can go over there and you can put comments, or you can find me in all the places. If you want to work with me, I do one-on-ones for sure. I have the online courses listed there. And soon I will be doing like retreats and healing with the horses, ancestral healing with the horses here at the farm. I think, as I talked about in one of my past ones, past podcasts, just the last couple here, divine timing, right? So all in divine timing, I will be starting up those retreats. I will be starting up workshops, all the things. I'll be doing all the things, and you can find all the things. So, yeah, that'll be it for today. Thank you for listening. As always, check out my other podcast episodes, and I'll see you on the other side.